Powerful currents are reshaping our world. Climate change, aging populations, inequalities, conflict, and technological advances are transforming the way we live and the health of our societies. While these megatrends bring challenges, they also open doors for innovation and bold, impactful change. To navigate these currents, the second European programme of work will be our health compass, guiding us toward a healthier, fairer, and more secure future for all. Your voice, our future.
Welcome everyone to this second hearing in our series Shaping the Second European Programme of Work. I'm Natasha and I'm going to be your host during this hearing today. And it seems like it was only yesterday that we were here in the same studio with colleagues, but so much has happened over the past days. And I know there's a lot going on, and therefore I'm deeply grateful that you have found the time to be with us today, to contribute, to shape, to listen to experts, academics, politicians, people, but also to share with us what you think we as WHO Euro should be focusing on when we examine this megatrend of a rapidly aging population. I'm excited about this hearing today because to me this hearing is about people. So as you're going to hear a lot of numbers, statistics, trends, I'd just invite you to keep in mind a parent, a grandparent, a child, a nephew, a niece. And remember that what we are talking about today is about their health and their well-being. And I'm delighted that Dr. Hans Kluge, our regional director, has found the time to be with me in the studio this morning. And Hans, last summer, whilst I was taking some time off, you were very busy thinking about what should we focus on for the next 5 years. So can perhaps you share with us what inspired you to make this, the aging population in the European region, one of your key priorities?
Thank you. Great pleasure to be with you here, dear Natasha, and thank you everyone who joined. I think we had about 1,000 plus people. Last hearing, this is the second one. You know, the development of the European Programme of Work for me is really to be co-created. It's something jointly. So I really love when you say, let's put a human face. And if you put a human face, we look in society, of course we cannot escape the aging of the society. I think it's by 2050 that the number of people 80 years old or above will triple. And last year, for the first time in our region, we had more people who are elderly than younger. So it's a fact. But we have to look at this as a paradigm shift. You know, I always make time for our WHO retirees. And we had the Christmas gathering over here. And actually they were telling me, listen, Ardi, Hans, we need a paradigm shift because now they're retired, they feel how society looks at them. That aging is not a disease, it's not a problem or a syndrome, right? If we do it well, aging actually is a privilege. Aging is living. This is something, a mantra that we developed together with Yonji and the whole team. So aging is living, and we have to come to that one. There's no escape because our health system will crack. I mean, definitely, if we don't do anything about this. Also, I think we owe it. You mentioned our parents, our grandparents. They contribute a lot, so let them enjoy the quality of life, really. It's very important. And I always say loneliness is a killer. I mean, we know that, I think it's one out of 4 aging people, they feel lonely. This is not good. I mean, whether it's in the youth or it is in elderly people, we have to connect the people socially, really.
Absolutely. And Hans, I really like it when you say, yes, aging is living.
Yes.
Sadly, I was reminded this week about the privilege to age because I lost a close friend of mine who is just 57 years old. And this is what we want to do. No, we want to reframe the fact that aging is living, but we also know that there's a lot that can be done for people to reach old age better. And there are still a lot of myths, for example, around dementia.
True.
And I want to also say that today people see me here, but actually for us to really tackle this is why you are here, because it's a lift across the house.
Yes.
And my dear colleague last week, Gordon, when he was talking about NCDs, chose the topic of dementia to remind everyone that we can actually do a fair amount to prevent dementia too.
Yes.
And this is what we want to do, no, Hans? We want to reinvent also the paradigm on prevention.
Absolutely. Yes, me too. I was amazed by the presentation with Golden. He started, I think, with bullseye. I say, what is this going to lead? But it was brilliant. I think there were 14 risk factors which we could address, right, to prevent or at least prolong the onset of dementia. So again, I would like to start, Natasha, with the paradigm shift. That it's also not aging that is a driver of cost of the health system. It's because we don't succeed to age healthy. Actually, it's the increasing disability and disease which is driving the costs. So you mentioned it's an across the house effort, bravo, and across the government, across society. So we have to pull together. Why? Because if we want the elderly people to age healthy, we have to start as early on as possible, right? We discussed this also. Even actually prenatal. That's the moment we have to really catch the people. Actually, I just came back from Serbia, as you know, and there Minister Lončar was telling, let's have a program together up to the 4th grade and change the mindset of the children. That's also why Portugal, if I discussed with the Minister of Health of Portugal, why have such a high vaccination rate, while in other countries it really goes down. Minister was telling me, well, Hans, because vaccination is seen as healthy action, it's part of our lifestyle, because it's being taught early on. So the earlier we start, the better. This whole prevention field, and then it's the mindset. We have to look differently, because when I was a child, people would look to me already as an old person. The guy is moving up to 60 years. No, this is a whole different, I mean, life starts, right? So we have a lot of, in front of us, we have to be very, very optimistic. But the prevention part is very important. And countries like Italy, for example, with quite an aging population, have been doing an awesome job on this, introducing digital technology, introducing artificial intelligence. And we have to go a little bit to other countries, to other regions, to see how it is being done.
Thank you, Hans, also for reminding us that when we talk about aging and good health, we are not only talking about older persons, but we actually are talking about starting with our children.
Yes.
And in fact, this regional committee, we will be presenting the renewed child and adolescent strategy as part of this journey towards healthy aging.
Yes, and yesterday you and me discussed together, Natasha, with the Minister of Health of Uzbekistan, that will organize an international conference on maternal and child health whenever we have the right timing, right? But this is indeed, we have to build that momentum. It's not just the aging, child health, adolescents who often fell or falling between the cracks, and the life, actually it's the life course approach.
Absolutely,
Yes.
but some people don't understand when we say the life course, so it's good to say that we want people.
Yes.
After all, Hans, sometimes we say, what is WHO all about? And we speak in complex ways.
Yes.
But WHO, to me, is about enabling governments, non-state actors, and everyone to be able to do what is possible for people to age in good health, not to die prematurely, and not to have unnecessary and avoidable disability. It's about closing these two lines, closing the line between life expectancy and healthy life expectancy. Whilst, of course, we know that in the later stages of our life, we will depend on some care. But what do we need to do over here now to try and ensure also that the care, the models of care, respond to this reality of an older population?
It's a big one, Natasha, because of course the gap between what we want and should be done and what is realistically, we can close it together, but there will always be a little bit of a gap. For this, I remember I was invited by the Queen Mathilde, Queen of my native country, Belgium, and you were part of that preparation with the team and with Lydia on mental health. It was on mental health of the elderly. And there was a fantastic film, a clip there, interviewing the elderly people. What do they want? And it was amazing. You know, sometimes the solutions are in front of us. The most ingenious are the ones who we just have to, you know, to catch. There was one word, Natasha. It was dignity. Don't belittle us. It was not about artificial intelligence to become 200 years or genomics. It was about don't treat us as children, right? Dignity. And I think we all have stories in, be it at home or elderly homes, dignity very important. And number two, what our friends from Sweden always actually highlight, social connection, right? We are not somehow made to live as an island. We saw it during COVID-19. So I think before we go to all the rest, let's also make the paradigm shift in our own mind about dignity and about social connection. I was a couple of months ago, as you know, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on invitation of the regional director of EMRO on the AMR conference, and we had a meeting with the Minister of Health. I was very eye-opening. He was telling, listen, Dr. Kluger, before I introduced the big reform, which he's asked to do, I went to several countries, many countries, he told to look. He says your European health systems actually are cracking. He was giving the example of South Korea, of Singapore, where they don't speak about digital health, they speak about digital society, right? And at the same time giving incentives, for example, to children of aging parents to take care of the housing. So it comes back what you told about this whole of government, whole of society approach that we have to pull together. I mean, maybe a final example, very inspiring, was in Flanders, when I went with Minister Hilde Krevets to these caring neighborhoods in Dadizele, actually very close to my hometown. I must have passed the basilic so many times I didn't know it was there, where the people with some disability were being activated in the workforce. I ate the best bread, right? Best chocolate, but little bit according to WHO guideline, right? Right over there. So don't look at people to their shortcoming, but look at what they still can contribute to society and give them dignity.
This is so true, Hans. Thank you so much for once again emphasizing and coming back to our WHO definition of health. It's physical health,
Bravo.
it's
Exactly.
mental health,
Yes.
it's social health and well-being. And of course, we work across governments and we focus on what can our contribution be towards health, and how do we need to support our governments also and our countries and actors to rethink a bit the health systems at a time now when the demographic shift is happening and happening so fast. And we know, Hans, that when things happen very, very quickly, often people feel they don't have the answers. And I believe here as WHO, also just by exercising this convening power, bringing the science to people, bringing people together, we hope that we can make our contribution also to find the right solutions.
And why we need a strong WHO globally.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, again, today's hearing is about the people. So Hans, I know you have a lot on your plate at the moment, also with the executive board coming up next week. So we're very grateful that you made this time to have a chat with me this morning.
Nothing more important than the European Programme of Work, Natasha.
I'm sure our spectators out there must have enjoyed our chat, where at least I hope they did, and I hope you did too. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you.
And we now go from a chat to science, to evidence, which is always at the heart of what WHO does. And it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Peter van Huyse, somebody who I got to know recently also whilst preparing for this hearing, a professor of political economy and public policy at the Department of Political Science and also a chair at the Danish Institute for Advanced Study here nearby at the University of Southern Denmark. Peter is one of the foremost European academic experts on political demography, aging and welfare. And I have been learning so much. It's been a steep learning curve every time we've had a chat to prepare for today's hearing. So I will leave you in Peter's hands, and he will talk to us really about this intergenerational solidarity and what needs to be done in our aging societies. Thank you, Peter, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we remind you to share your slides, please.
Are they visible, my slides?
Yes, we can
Okay,
hear
good morning,
you well.
everybody, and thank you, Natasha. Good to be with you. And so what I intend to do in the next 10 minutes or so is to share with you some macro level observations based on my own research with colleagues that I'm very pleased to hear based on the chat we just had with you and my compatriot Hans Kluge, very much are in the line of this sort of a life cycle perspective, macro level life cycle. In fact, you could argue when I think about in our aging societies, this intergenerational social contract, really sort of a guiding question or a guiding metaphor is that things like pensions, but also healthcare, long-term care reform, start with babies. And I will try to explain why I think this is so important to really think through the life cycle perspective, also when it comes to intergenerational resource transfers across society. And the starting point is something so obvious we don't think about it anymore, right? We have this ever since we evolved in our hunter-gatherer stage and we invented old age as a life cycle stage. We have this double problem over the life cycle. In our early and our later stage of life, we consume more than we earn. Yet we like to have a sort of more equal, more smooth consumption patterns over our life cycle, which is a problem that we solve in our contemporary societies through the welfare state. The welfare state is the intergenerational solution that we have for this fundamental life cycle consumption problem. Namely, we have working-aged cohorts, life cycle stages, who can be taxed in one or the other way to have these downward transfers to the young, these upward transfers to the end-of-life stage. And my question in what I will share with you the next 10 minutes is as old as, sociology of generations, if you like. Basically, the question is what and how many resources do these different generations transfer among each other to keep that intergenerational contract rolling? What we think we contribute to that old question that is new is we use a new technology or methodology called national transfer accounts to actually shine a wider light on that same question. We go beyond, as per usual, if you like, the welfare state, taxes and transfers, to also try and value, first measure then value, all sorts of transfers happening in the family realm that are equally important, but much more less accounted for, less visible, therefore less valued. And that will, at the end of my little talk, lead me to make a plea to all of you to think even more holistically, more systemically about revaluing care work, downward care, upward care across the life cycle, and all sorts of not just productive, but also reproductive contributions that are happening in our societies, in our aging societies, to keep that contract rolling. Why, as I noted, does the life cycle matter so much? One of the ways we try to answer this in a work with colleagues from Hungary is by looking at, 22 countries in Europe, over 400,000 Europeans, and we try to do a simple, if you like, tournament between one key function of the welfare state, which is, if you like, Robin Hood, and one or the other way, using the tax and transfer machine to, equalize things, to redistribute from the richer to the poorer status groups. That's clearly one. important function of welfare states. But there's another one, which is this life cycle function, the piggy bank, if you like, which is more about downward transfers to the young, upward transfers to the elderly. And in this research, we just look, in a very comprehensive way, the full welfare state for 22 countries. We do a little tournament between these two different major redistribution lines or cleavages, if you like. And here's how we try to visualize that. Here we have basically our 400,000 Europeans in 10 different deciles by age, from the youngest, 0 to 9, to the oldest section over 72 plus, but also by SES, by socioeconomic status, by class, from the lower to the highest class. And when we look at net benefits, so all benefits received from the welfare state, all these many programs in this big cathedral that is a welfare state, net of taxes and contributions given to finance that, this is the sort of the visual image we come up with. What does it show us? Well, it shows us that the welfare state, as could be expected, has both of these functions. There is some of a Robin Hood function here. So if you look at the figure, you can think of it as a sort of a river bank, a river bed with two river banks. And as you can see, the river flows gently downstream towards us as watchers, spectators. So that's the SES element, somewhat progressive, but especially in midlife, quite progressive. But then there's also, of course, the two river banks. Young and elder life cycle stages clearly in net terms receive more than they contribute to the welfare state. And those banks are not symmetrical. So the right bank, the right side of the river ströms towards us, so it's on your left is the young, and that river bank is lower than it is for the left river bank, which is on your right for the elderly. So this is a very interesting sort of asymmetry there too by age. And then when we do the basic question, is overall, in terms of explaining the variance in these net benefits received by these many different Europeans in these different welfare states, is the piggy bank more or less important than Robin Hood? The question is surprising. Even in my tribe, social policy scholarship, we were not aware how much it is not even a close contest, how much the piggy bank is, empirically at least, more important in terms of redistribution than the Robin Hood function. To put it in very, on purpose, badly chosen words, perhaps, forgive me the formulation today, especially this week, age trumps class, empirically, right? So that is, of course, why population aging, our topic very much of today's hearings, matters so much. Because if the welfare state is how we solve that life cycle consumption financing problem by somehow, taking extra resources from the middle-aged, working-aged stage of life to give these downward and upward transfers, then, of course, not just the relative size of these age groups matters a lot. And this is what population aging, changes very much, of course. Lower fertility, big cohorts of current baby boomers, that, moreover, a clear sign of progress, are living ever longer, one hopes also healthy, longer lives. It's also, by the way, why human capabilities, if you like, the quality dimension of people matters so much. Productivity, creativity, caring talent, caring, nurturing abilities are a key in how the welfare states solve our intergenerational or life cycle consumption financing problem. So much is clear. What is less clear is, however, that contract that we use, namely the welfare state, is lopsided. You could see it already if we go back a little bit to our stream of the river. As I noted, the left bank of the river on your right-hand side, streaming towards us, is much higher than the other side, the right bank of the river. Somehow we have this asymmetric way of doing, through the welfare state at least, our transfers. When I then look at in new research, and I look at some sort of measure of the overall age orientation of welfare states, what you see here in this elderly bias of social spending indicators for a sample of 32 rich democracies is, all sorts of elderly programs, pensions, long-term care, in cash and in kind, and so on, as a ratio of all sorts of non-elderly programs like health, like education, like family spending, like early childhood, like activation spending, and so on. So if you're at a ratio of these two age orientations of the welfare state, after adjusting for demographic structure. So whatever values you see here is not because a country is old or young demographically. It's a policy bias variable. Now, of course, there's no magic number of what it should be, the ABIES in aging societies, the elderly orientation relative to the non-elderly of the entire treatment of the welfare state. But what this does is it does two things. It adds comparative evidence over time and, of course, across countries. So first of all, what you see here is a lot of variation. Yeah. When we contrast, for example, a place like Greece or more generally, Southern Europe, non-Baltic Eastern Europe, and the USA, which have elderly orientation values for their welfare state structure of something in the range of 8, or even in the case of Greece, around 11. And we compare it with the Baltic states or the other Anglo-Saxon nations, or also, by the way, the Benelux or Sweden or so. These are often equally demographically advanced nations with much more age group balanced welfare constellations, if you like. And by the way, when I then correlate this policy variable with a pure demography variable, the standard workhorse of old age dependency ratios, the correlation is, if, as you would expect, in the right direction. Older societies have more elderly-oriented welfare states, but it is very minor, very weak. Demography is not destiny. Secondly, what such an empirical approach shows us is also temporal developments. When you then compare the green with the red columns, even though in 2015, as we know, compared to 1995, this sample of countries clearly had gone through 20 years of population aging, sometimes rapidly so. And yet, despite this aging OECD world, on the whole, these policy bias variables have gone down, not up. So there seems to be some degree of corrective capacity or re-equilibrating capacity going on in our policy systems. That's the second thing one can take away from that sort of exercise. So we have this solution called the welfare state for our downward and upward care streams, and we have this very interesting, if you like, division of labor in our European welfare states. We have elderly welfare states. We socialize how we take care as a generation of working age people of the generation of later life cycle people through public healthcare, public long-term care, public pension systems, pay as you go. But we, on the whole, notwithstanding what we do in terms of family policies, education policies, still largely privatize the care downward for the younger generations. Yeah? And that's a solution we have in Europe that's, for example, much less the case in Asia. Yeah? This sort of asymmetric way in which we socialize these two directions of care streams in our European welfare states. And not just is this a lopsided way of doing things, it works, but of course it's coming under strain in our aging societies. But, and here is where I come to my message about caring and reproduction, yeah, it also leaves out entirely, one even could argue, it free rides upon many other valuable contributions of valuable resources, mainly within the family realm, that also are absolutely key to keeping our societies rolling over time, social reproduction, namely transfers of money and of time, which is why we need to think harder, in my view, about our caring paradigms and our valuation of reproductive work. Here I come to the later paper with the same team of authors from Hungary, where we try to make a very basic point. If we now look at, okay, how we continue in that life cycle perspective, as Hans Kluge and Natasha said earlier, in a way it starts with babies, really, doesn't it? But it's not about babies necessarily. It's about the next 25 years of rearing those newborn babies to productive, mentally healthy, fiscally contributive new adulthood. Yeah? It's about the next 25 years of child rearing. And to get there from day one, new births to 25-year-olds, where on average in Europe we show people start becoming net resource contributive citizens, it takes not one resource channel, the welfare state, taxes and transfers, it takes 3 resource channels. Also, money transfers, market goods and services, also time transfers, unpaid household labor, first and foremost, care work. Yeah? So when we then look at, okay, how much does it really cost in our rich European region to not have babies, but to rear those babies to productive adulthood 25 years later, we believe we have some interesting results. So first of all, channel 1, the welfare state is per usual. So here we look at the life cycle. And whatever is above the horizontal axis is basically receipt of resources. In this case, the left panel, receipt in net terms of tax money, tax contributions, yeah? And there we see, once again, what I told you already before. We have these elderly-oriented welfare states that, of course, also spend a lot on, for example, education programs. We do these both things together in our welfare states. In fact, our welfare states, the left panel, is a 3-generational affair. Not so channel 2, market goods and services over the life cycle. Not so channel 3, time transfers. There we see basically in net terms per capita in this sample of 12 countries, it's a 2-generational affair. And that's also helpful to keep in mind. Yeah? It is mainly the middle-aged that give a lot of money transfers, middle panel, mainly, as you can see, to teenage and early 20-something children. And of course, right side panel, enormous time transfers, valuable time care work to especially younger children, starting at the first year of life. Yeah. So even the eyeball, the visual story, shows that shining a wider light on the same question of how we, through our resource transfers, keep our intergenerational system rolling, shows you that the curves look very different. We have a different understanding already. Then we look at, okay, what does it mean then in that productive life cycle stage between ages 25 and 60 or so, when we then divide what parents chip in, those living together with children, rearing them, relative to non-parents. Yeah? First of all, in the blue columns, the welfare state, once again, channel 1, taxes and transfers. And then, as you can see, on average for Europe, the story is 0.73. Over the working life, on average, over 20 or so countries, parents chip in somewhat fewer net taxes than do non-parents. The welfare state, in other words, works. It does something for parents. And that's, of course, a great thing from this reproduction point of view. But if we then shine a wider light on the same question, and we now try to also value money transfers, time transfers, caring work, and we jump to the red bars, the same ratio now, in the red bars, our story truly flips around. Yeah, we jump from 0.73, parents chip in something like, 27% fewer net taxes than do non-parents, now to altogether 2.66. Parents, the 3 channels combined, now turn out to chip in, if you like, more than 2.5 as many resources than do non-parents to this intergenerational resource transfer system. Yeah? So, measuring more widely doesn't just make things more complete, it changes quite radically our understanding of the basic question, right? And by the way, to go from a 0.73 understanding of what we should do, for example, for our family policies, our education policies, more general, our caring paradigm thinking, versus to have the same question based on the 2.66 measure or value, that probably will come up with very different answers, yeah? And by the way, look at our Sweden and look at our Finnish ranking here. The average for Europe is 2.6, but it is 2.99 for Sweden. It is 3.17 for Finland. In other words, our famously family-friendly welfare states turn out implicitly to burden parents most of all. Yeah? They help parents in a narrow, specific, productivist way. They help all parents, including most mothers, work. Then they send them the bill. The help is not a gift. The channel 2, time transfers, channel 3, money transfers, weighs very heavily in these Nordic countries in terms of child rearing. So, isn't that a bit of a paradox in our aging societies that implicitly we claim we are taxing our own reproductive efforts? Remember, this is important because pension reform starts with babies. Yeah? And we have all sorts of subsidies going on for some green investments, for savings, for charities, sometimes very loosely and widely defined charity donations. We give tax deductions. And yet, for this absolutely crucial, if you like, demographic contribution, we implicitly, we argue, tax rather than subsidize those valued contributions with large positive externalities. And that's a bit of a puzzle that, of course, becomes very relevant in our current debates, including in Nordic Europe, about population aging and the fertility crisis. Yeah. So none of you, I'm sure, believes in the Stork theory of new babies. This is something we've, or a myth we've long, debunked, if you like. And yet, somehow, I argue, as long as we keep fiddling at the margins and just look at the welfare state, 0.73, and forget about these other transfer channels, we somehow act as if, new adults still, all of a sudden, 25 years down the line after birth, fully formed, drop partly out of the sky from the beak of a stork. Yeah? The 2.66 ratio, you could argue, is certainly an asymmetric burden, one might say a metaphorical tax on reproductive efforts, which seems to be, rather inefficient or badly thought through in the context of our aging societies and the intergenerational contract that keeps us going. If that's true, we really need to, I believe, start rethinking more carefully about more holistic reproduction paradigm. Solution 1 is ready, but of course, at the moment, out of the Overton window, with some exceptions, of course. So we don't like immigration in Europe currently, but we do like some cream skimming of some caring talent from places like Africa or Philippines. But on the whole, this looks like the Overton window for that is quite closed. And there's also moral debates to be had about this sort of a brain drain that often comes with it, these poor to rich country transfers. Since solution 1 essentially is off the table, we need to really think about not just fertility, but about the next 25 years, about how we, over those 25 years, rear those new babies all the way to new adults. Remember, this is about quantity and it's about quality. It's about how many productive, mentally healthy, physically healthy, creative adults we deliver to society. So there's a quality and equality dimension to these, and basically both of these are the public good, the social positive externality that parents provide, altogether not compensated for, to society. So
I'm going to have to ask you, Peter, to wrap up, because we've got our guests for the next segment.
Thank you,
here.
Natasha.
Thank you.
So that leads to care economist Nancy Solder calling it taxing the stork. My daughter Hannah made a nice illustration of that problem. How do you like my hat as an adult in this illustration? So in a nutshell, we need to maybe have a second green moment. A green moment not about the environment, which we had 15 years ago and still are working through. We need to think about a new green moment about aging and caring, about a new way to no longer free ride upon the contributions that actually keep our aging societies through these welfare state solutions that we have going over time. It matters because, we have all sorts of invisible value production and all sorts of weird ways of, valuing or non-valuing things. Care work penalties, motherhood penalties are other ways in which we, by not valuing reproductive work, actually, bias and actually burden asymmetrically important contributions. That is why I believe we need a caring paradigm. I hope by now we have also debunked that second myth about the second stork tree of how new adults come into our world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Peter. And I mean, that was a lot to take in. We've discussed these before, and yet I still feel I have to learn so much. But I like what I hear, valuing reproductive care and contributions, and also keeping an eye on policies that favor both the older people and the younger people. I guess this is what we're trying to do. But rather than try to reflect myself on this complex presentation, I'm now joined in the studio by Stefania Ilinka, who is actually our expert in-house on care and long-term care, and Yongji On, who is actually our expert on healthy aging and prevention. So could I ask you both to give me a very quick reflection on what this means for WHO Euro, for the European Programme of Work, in terms of care, Stefania, in terms of prevention, Yongji?
I'll go first if I may. Thank you so much, Peter, for that tour de force. It was impressive, but what most impressed me from the care perspective is the way you underline the enormous contribution of families to care. This keeps our societies going. This sustains our health and welfare systems. This is part of what we are now calling the transforming the care ecosystem, because we understand we need to keep supporting families to provide the care they do. And I also appreciated a lot Peter painted a picture of care as a natural part of human existence, not as a concern for a small minority. Yeah? We all give and we all receive care.
Wow, fantastic, Stefania. Yongji.
Well, I mean, for me, one of the striking data that came from Peter, and thank you, Peter, for your excellent presentation, is that the European welfare states still allocate a significant proportions of its resources to older populations, but this share has decreased, even among the rapidly aging populations. This underscored the importance of prevention and my work about promoting healthy aging so that each successive generations of older persons, I count myself as one, if I'm lucky to become older, so that we can contribute to our communities, through our societies, through the care economy, through the well-being economy.
So I hope that Peter will convince governments and societies to ensure that the next generation will be in a position to bring children to the world, and I can look forward to being a grandma.
That's right. And I really look forward to our conversations, but also the broader conversations with our excellent panel of speakers who are joining with us today. They represent a wide array of perspective and expertise. And together we will explore these topics, our collective response, our collective commitment and actions across governments, across societies to promote aging and good health in an aging societies. We are within the UN Decade of Healthy Aging. This is a wonderful opportunity to work together across sectors to transform into aging in good health for all of us. So we want to, as we heard this morning, we wanted to co-create the European Programme of Work. And so we would, in addition of having these discussions, we'd like to hear from you. And as in our last meeting, we will use ParaTool, which is developed by WHO to collect and to synthesize your input. So what you'll see on your screen is the QR code for you to scan, or if you prefer, we've provided you a link to Para in the chat function. So we ask you to, during your break later today, or even now if you're inspired to tell us what we need to do, to describe up to three strategic directions or priorities that should shape our collective health agenda for the next 5 years, and to effectively address demographic change, to foster health and well-being for all generations, and to ensure equitable access to essential health and care services. And so we will ask for your name, your affiliations, but the answer will be anonymous and it will not be traced to you. So the ParaTool will be open until Monday next week, so feel free. But of course, if you're inspired now, please do share your input. And now back to you for our excellent discussion.
Thank you, Yongji and Stefania, and we'll hear from you more in a moment. And of course, remember, keep, as you are inputting into Para, people around you very much in your focus, because we want to hear concrete and practical suggestions of what you think we should be focusing on in the coming years. We now segue to our second segment of the hearing today, and it's my deep pleasure to introduce Minister Alexei Buzu from Moldova. Thank you, Alexei, for making the time to be with us. And I'm sure that you are one of perhaps the people who has understood the most from Peter's presentation, because I know that this is very much your area of expertise. As Minister for Social Affairs in Moldova, I know that you are taking also this twin-track approach, trying to focus on the rapidly aging population, which in your case, of course, is also further intensified by the additional complexity of the emigration of many skilled professionals. So I would like to give you the floor so that you can tell us a little bit, despite the significant geopolitical challenges and other challenges that you are facing, how in Moldova you are pursuing ambitious reforms, also working to counter the effects of outward migration and the effects that this has on the demography of the country. I know you've done a lot, but maybe you can share with us some of the things that you are most proud of.
Thank you, Natasha. Good to be here with you today. I'm very honored to be part of this event with these distinguished speakers. The previous interventions were fascinating, and I took a lot of notes, and I really did appreciate the picture with the stork. It was very nice touch. You know, in 2022. I was part of an author group who wrote an analysis for the government of Moldova, and in that analysis we said, you know, in the most positive scenario, by 2040, the population of Moldova will decrease by 21%, and that would mean that close to half of our population in 2040 will be 50 plus. In the period of 2014 to 2023, which means over the last decade, the population of Moldova decreased by 12%, but the working age population decreased by 20% due to outward migration. So it says a lot that after I wrote this analysis for the government, in 2023, I still yet decided to become a minister to mostly deal with these challenges. But what I want to share with you today briefly is my perspective as a minister, and I'll mostly talk about the political side of things. I think one issue is that, and we talked about this as well, the need of retraining a lot of things. When we talk about demography and aging societies, I think, of course, it's important to talk about fertility, dependency ratios, the number of people, the population numbers, and so forth. I think that's still crucial. It's important, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Why? Because I think when we only talk and kind of target those things, we basically fall into two very distinct groups, which the first one is say, look, the demography is destiny, there's nothing we can do about this, and therefore why bother? And the other is that, you know, we set ourselves this unrealistic goals of increasing the fertility with misguided policies, or increasing population numbers, again, with misguided policies. And I think what we need to do is just to ask basic questions like, beyond population numbers or fertility levels, are our citizens, men and women, young people or older people, are they feel safer? Do they have more choice? Are they able to participate, shape the life in their country, community? are they able to have a productive life, and so forth. So again, more and more we need to talk and prize well-being over the other indicators. And of course, when we go to conferences or events, it's nice to again emphasize well-being. But what happens if you have a crisis, a fiscal crisis, like a war in a nearby country, and then how you implement this in practice. So my job as a minister was to not compromise our agenda on gender equality, on inclusiveness, on making sure that we invest in young people, on making sure that we provide dignity to older men and women in Moldova. So I think readjusting and making sure that we put people first in our policies is more important than targeting population numbers or fertility levels and so forth. But that's, again, it's a political choice, and it's something that we all need collectively to do. The second thing I want to say, and I want to come back to, is the idea of care. I said multiple times, my big hope was that out of a COVID crisis, we will be able to achieve this societal shift of making sure that we care and we care for carers, meaning that we will put a real value for care services for those who provide care. And I think we greatly failed at this. We undervalue care. We take it for granted. And I, as a minister for now 2 years, with all the difficulties, with all the deficits we had to deal with, we really try to make sure that we make those critical investments into care, meaning childcare, elderly care. One of the reforms we enacted in 2023, the Restart reform, was a wholesale reform of the social assistance sector. And part of that reform was to make sure that we expand the access and quality to home care. And I was very proud at the end of 2024, where we were able to increase home care access by 11%. And I think that's a decent result that we need to build on. Over the last 3 years, with all the economic and fiscal constraints, Moldova has never made more investments into childcare, alternative childcare, investments into making sure that we strengthen our gender-based violence response, investments into social services. And these are critical if we want to make sure that we ride and manage this demographic transition in a very inclusive and equitable way, because that's a political choice as well. We need to understand that the way we prioritize investments, the way we prioritize our public policies will shape the inequalities and those who bear the brunt, who will pay the cost of this transition. And the last thing I want to say, as someone who worked all his life in civil society and then got himself on the dark side, being a minister, it's very important to always, absolutely always empower people, empower those who are most marginalized, those whose voice not always reach decision makers. Without this, we cannot pretend that we work on behalf of the people. And when we say we leave no one behind, we should really mean this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Buzu, for highlighting that social investment needs to remain at the core of our policy, especially in the face of economic and geopolitical crisis, and for highlighting the importance of hearing the voices of older people in the discourse. And on this note, I have a perfect segue to introduce Dr. Heidrun Mollenkopf. We are honored to have Heidrun with us today. She is a leading champion for the rights of older people. She is the president of Age Platform Europe, and she's a personal role model of mine for embodying what it means to age with grace and with strength. Heidrun, my question for you today is if you could share some insights from your own experience about the diversity of aging experiences and the myriad ways in which older people contribute to our societies.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. You mentioned already that the diversity among older persons is huge. It is larger than among all generations. And therefore, the experiences older persons make depends very much on their circumstances. And the circumstances of older persons are largely a result of what they experienced during their life. It's well known that negative or positive conditions accumulate in old age. And that's why it is so important to ensure good living conditions over the life course already in the younger generations. Another aspect I would like to mention is that very often older persons are challenged by barriers. Barriers regarding places they have to or want to go to, about objects, technologies, and services they want or have to use. And this is exacerbated by digitalization, also in the health sector. So devices, services must be developed in a way that everybody can use them easily and that nobody is excluded from important societal fields. So this is, I think, a right to participate, which is touched by these developments. And in any case, as important as digitalization is and as helpful as it is, we always have to keep in mind and to consider that there are people, not just older people, who don't want or who cannot use the digital services. And that therefore we have always to provide alternative options to use in order not to exclude someone. And a final aspect I would like to mention is the experience of ageism and discrimination. Why, from one day to the other, when we reach a certain age, why do we have to pay higher fees for insurances? Why do we have to stop driving just because we have reached a certain age? Although or despite decades of safe driving. So these are questions we as older people don't understand. And why do we get less medical services? Why don't we get enough rehabilitation after an accident, for instance? Why no mental health support in older age? These are important questions, I think. We always are looked at as frail, as needing help and care, no longer being competent to do something, to contribute. We are looked at as a burden. And this is not the case. We are not a burden. We contribute to many fields in society. Of course, it's well known that we contribute as grandparents, caring for our grandchildren, making professional life and careers of our children possible through this work. We contribute as teachers, as trainers in sport, in art, in education. Older persons were the main actors when we had to welcome the many refugees, the many migrants from other countries. It was the older persons who were most of all contributing to integrate them. We are mentors for young scientists, for young professionals. And we join our forces with young people to work for our democracy and to protect the environment. And I think these are just a few examples why we have to change the negative image of aging to a more equal and positive and rights-based image. Thank you. This, I think, is what I would like to forward to you.
Thank you so much, dear Heidrun. You have also been my mentor, and I look to you about what healthy aging means. Thank you so much for challenging us to be more inclusive of older persons, so that no older persons is left behind, to see older persons not as just simply recipients of services, but active contributing member of society. Speaking about societies and the local level where services are being coordinated and implemented, let me introduce you to our two speakers, Peter Kelly, Regional Director for Public Health of the North East and Yorkshire in England, and Ana Maria Carriazo, who is the Senior Advisor of the Regional Ministries of Health and Consumer Affairs from Andalusia, Spain. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we heard a lot today about how do we close the gap between life expectancy and healthy life expectancy. So questions to you, Peter. How do we do that at the local level? What initiative are you doing within Yorkshire and Northeast of England? Over to you.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, and very good to be here. And some incredible speakers I've heard this morning. So one aspect I'd just like to expand on, we've heard briefly about, but this is the concept of looking at the gap in healthy life expectancy and life expectancy in terms of health inequalities, and to understand how that's distributed unequally across our society. And it's no different in my region, which is about 8 million people, than it is to all of England, which is just under 60 million. So in our poorest 10%, our poorest decile, the gap in healthy life expectancy to life expectancy is about 26 years. The gap in our richest 10% is about 15 years. Mm. That is a big difference. And there's a very, very clear distribution across from the first decile to the 10th decile. It's remarkably consistent as you go through. It's like some ladders going through equally all the way through virtually. So first of all, we know the burden of ill health or poor aging is more in the poorer communities than the wealthier communities. So recognizing that, we need to have interventions which actually are beneficial to those poorer communities, and it's something which Professor Marmot would say to proportionally help those communities more than the communities at the other end. Of course, we want to help everybody to age well, but we need to work harder to help people at the poorer end of society to age well because they have greater needs. A part of this is looking at multimorbidity as well. So when you actually look at the data, we're trying to be very data driven. When we look at the data, people in the poorest 10%, about half of them, by the time they get to age 60, have multiple conditions. Not just physical conditions that might have some form of cardiovascular disease. They may have arthritis or rheumatism. They may also have mental health problems. As Heidrun, our previous speaker, said, we probably don't pay enough attention to that. And also the combination of these things, actually the poor physical health can lead to mental health problems and anxiety and depression and frankly, social dismay at their circumstances they find themselves in. So what we're doing here as a government-led mission is to try and look at the combination of primary prevention and secondary prevention. So the primary prevention on a population basis, and again, starting from the very beginning, healthy aging starts, as we heard earlier, from birth. From the very beginning, we try and do a lot more on tackling the harm caused by tobacco, by alcohol, by obesity. We have a mission to try and help people at all ages to be physically active, but particularly we know for older people, helping them to keep them physically active is a good thing. It helps them physically, it helps them mentally. But we have to disproportionately focus our efforts again on those people where the greatest gain is to be made, which is those people, the poor end of society. Otherwise, the burden on all of us will continue to grow. The other part of the prevention model is a secondary prevention model, where we need to scale up our efforts around identifying people with undiagnosed hypertension and treat it, undiagnosed high cholesterol and treat it, because we estimate perhaps even as much as 40% of dementia can be delayed into much older age rather than people suffer from that if we tackle the primary and the secondary prevention measures, and we do it at scale on a systematic basis for all of society. So in summary, we are very focused on the gap in healthy life expectancy and life expectancy. We think it is possible to help people to improve their quality of life, so the healthier life for longer. It starts very early in life, of course, but there are things we could do now for people who are middle-aged and old age still, which we should be doing. We can't abandon those people. We should be doing them now to help those people. And we have a real focus on health inequalities. Just the final thing is, we have a real problem in England around people who've dropped out of work post-pandemic, and they aren't working now because they aren't very well, and they're too sick to work. And actually being able to work productively, even if however many hours it is, even to work as a carer, informally as a grandparent, people need to be healthy as well. So we are working very hard as well to try and help people who currently have long-term sickness, try and help them back into the workplace to help them, if you like, stop their decline and help them to age in a healthier way. So I'll stop there, Yonji, but that's a summary of what we do in here.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much for highlighting equity, the widening equity, but also multi-morbidities, which, as you know, requires intersectoral collaborations at different levels of governments across different sectors. With that, I want to ask Anna, thank you so much for joining us. How, in your experience, do you manage to coordinate the various services at different levels of government and across different sectors? Could you share with us your experience?
Yonggi, thank you very much for the invitation, and it's a privilege for me to share my contribution with all these distinguished panelists in this session. I would like to start by saying that increased longevity and having more elderly people is an achievement of the current societies. It's something that we plan to do more things in the future. I'm here representing a regional government with competencies on healthcare, but also on social policies that are not in the same department. Probably these connections to better address the needs of the populations is a need to provide better services. We need to improve the collaboration and the coordination among the different services provided to the population that goes beyond addressing health needs independently, but they need to connect to the other services, and particularly with social services. Recently, we are working in a strategy for coordination on health and social services to promote the well-being of the population, in particular those who had more needs, and in addressing the people at older age. To do that, there is also a very important coordination committee, an interdepartmental commission at the regional level, addressing health-related policies, to have all departments at the regional level aware of the different initiatives supporting the improvement of the health of the population in the region. The coordination also moves not only between the national level, the regional level, but also at the local level. In the case of Spain, the health services have a national coordination, overall coordination, but it's a regional competency, a regional responsibility for providing health planning, health provision, and the actual provision of health services. But social services are provided also at different levels, at regional level for specialized social care, but also at the municipality. So this coordination among the different departments in the regional, at the regional level, but the coordination for the social and care, social and healthcare services are very important. And to this, I would like to add that has been mentioned before, the need to stress not only the prevention, but also the promotion of healthy living from the early stages of life. Addressing healthy diet, physical activity, correct sleeping, sexuality, and also the correct use of technologies. We are living in a digital world. We need to make those services simple and accessible to everybody. I think Hadron mentioned this, and I think it's a very important point. My mother still dealing with all the new technologies that we all have in our hands. And from the different responsibilities that we all have, it is important to incorporate, to have them in mind, and to include, to be ready to provide all the services for the population. The coordination is not an easy task, and it needs a political will and a technical impulse to be all on board and to support and the inclusion of all stakeholders, including elderly people, defining their needs and letting us know how we can respond better to their needs. And this is my contribution. Thank you, Yonggi.
Anna, thank you so much for that. And thank you, Peter, for reminding us that while the challenges are shared across our region, the best solutions are always local. And this is why at WHO Europe, we are so proud of the close work we do with our partners in the Regions for Health Network, as well as in the Healthy Cities and Age-Friendly Cities Network, to find these local solutions and to scale them. But because action is needed at local level, it doesn't mean that a shared vision and the joint motivation for action at international level doesn't help catalyze investment. And I'm very happy to have with us today Dana Carmen Bachmann. Dana is the head of the Social Protection Unit at the Directorate General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion at the European Commission. And she was also part of the team who developed and implemented the European Care Strategy. We're very proud of the European Care Strategy as one of the most ambitious international commitments to improving access to high quality, affordable care for care users and care receivers. And Dana, I have an easy question for you today. Can you please let us know what progress has been achieved over the last 2 years and how partnership and collaboration have helped make this vision a reality?
Thank you very much, and very happy and honored actually to be part of this very interesting discussion. Maybe before I go into the achievements, just a quick word on the vision that we set in the European Care Strategy. It's a vision that echoes a lot of the messages this morning, taking a lifelong perspective and highlighting that we need as a society as a whole to value much more care work in a formal setting, so formal care workers, but also social family care provided by the loved ones. We also highlight very much the investment perspective of reinforcing care systems, both looking at all the different dimensions of care systems, from enhancing access, affordability, but also better supporting carers in their different roles. and highlighting and putting the evidence as regards the multiple returns on investment that we would have as a society and also economically by reinforcing our care systems. So now looking at the progress, indeed, it's only 2 years and a couple of months since the strategy has been adopted. I think the main really achievement is that it sets a European vision, a vision at European level in which all member states and all stakeholders that are part of the care ecosystem very much believe, and they feel it echoes and it supports their work. It has also taken inspiration from international agenda with regards to care, because we have looked and built on ILO's work, at OECD work, but also most importantly allowed us to work very closely and to develop a very successful partnership with the World Health Organization, already delivering tangible results, because there is the self-assessment tool for long-term care system that local central governments can use to scan and to really identify what are the strengths and the weaknesses on which they should work to improve their care systems. And also later this year, we will have another important outcome of this successful cooperation with Stefania and colleagues with a focus on support toolkit for informal carers. Now, moving on from the European level, I would say that we have seen lots of action, energy, political commitment at member states level, both national, local levels, and also all the actors that are involved in the ecosystem. So not only public authorities, social ministry, getting closer to health ministries, but also social partners, care providers, local authorities. We see lots of mechanisms of coordination that are either strengthened or being put together precisely to tap into the expertise and actually the added value of each of these key actors. Last year, we also undertook exercise where member states were sharing with us the measures that they took to support implementation of the care strategy. And we were actually really quite positive to see how much actions has been rolled out in less than 2 years. We have over 100 measures reported with regards to workforce, in particular, strengthening social dialogue, improving working conditions, increasing wages, facilitating recruitment, staff retention, but also lots of measures looking at how to enhance the affordability, the social protection for long-term care, how to improve the quality, especially in home care settings, how to improve availability of care settings, and again, with a very strong focus on going more towards community and home care models. And obviously in many member states also strong support measures that are being thought through, rolled out, targeting informal carers. So I would say altogether we really have very positive results, promising, but that doesn't mean that the job is done, because the challenge is, as it has been highlighted, quite big, and it's increasing with every year in light of an aging population. So I think we need to continue, we need to keep momentum, we need to reinforce even further our partnerships also at international level. And we need probably also to focus more on areas that were less in the spotlight in the current phase. And I take prevention as one of these key areas where we could further join forces and dig even deeper.
So
I stop here and thank you very much.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you so much to you and to the European Commission for your continued support and partnership. I'm sure I speak for the entire team at WHO Europe in saying that we are proud of the work we have produced together, and we look forward to continuing and deepening our collaboration. And I thank you also for reminding us that at the core of the European care strategy are care users, but also caregivers. There is no care without caregivers. And we are so delighted to have with us today a representative of the health and care workforce. Dr. Gulnaz Kachkinova-Ajemambietova is the Chief Nursing Officer the Chief Nursing and Midwifery Officer, I apologize, from Kyrgyzstan. And she can share with us today how Kyrgyzstan is working to address the challenges of protecting and retaining an aging nursing workforce while also attracting new people to the profession. Dr. Gulnaz, the floor to you.
Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги. Позвольте поприветствовать всех вас. В контексте глобального старения населения, особенно актуального для европейского региона, Кыргызстан активно работает над укреплением сестринских служб как ключевой кадровый элемент системы здравоохранения. Если посмотреть на демографию наших медсестер, то это важный аспект, который необходимо включить в наши многочисленные направления работы. Их удержание очень важно для нашей страны. Медсестры и акушерки играют важную роль в обеспечении качественной медицинской помощи всем возрастным группам, особенно растущему числу пожилых пациентов. И именно поэтому мы разрабатываем и реализуем комплексные меры по развитию и поддержке сестринского персонала. Основные направления нашей работы включают, во-первых, модернизацию сестринского образования, систему сестринского образования. Образовательные программы включают в себя современные подходы к качеству ухода, использование цифровых технологий и развитие клинического мышления. Во-вторых, мы создаем эффективную систему непрерывного профессионального развития. Медсестры регулярно проходят курсы непрерывного повышения квалификации, в том числе специализированные курсы по работе с пожилыми пациентами и неинфекционными заболеваниями. При разработке, реализации, внедрении этих инициатив важно учитывать, как мы расширяем возможности медсестер, обладающих опытом и знанием в этой области. Также мы реализуем программу по повышению заработной платы медицинского персонала, включая медсестер. Особое внимание уделяется поддержке специалистов в сельских районах, где проблема укомплектованности кадрами стоит наиболее остро. По результату технической работы группы Министерства здравоохранения по проведению анализа рынка труда по здравоохранению, который мы сейчас в данное время завершаем, могу сказать, что вопросы миграции медицинских работников также затрагивают и нашу страну в системе здравоохранения. Процесс анализа труда, рынка труда был крайне важен для нас, чтобы понять возрастную структуру, пол, географический дисбаланс, миграцию, комплектованность, обеспеченность медицинскими кадрами и также принять более обоснованное решение о том, какие усилия нам необходимо предпринять. Наш опыт показывает, что комплексный подход к развитию сестринского дела, включающий повышение уровня образования, улучшение условий труда и профессиональное развитие, позволяет нам постепенно укреплять кадровый потенциал здравоохранения. Мы понимаем, что нужно продолжать работать над созданием таких условий, при которых профессия медсестры станет все более привлекательной для молодежи, а опытные специалисты получат достойное признание своего труда. Благодарю за внимание.
Спасибо вам большое. Thank you so much also for reminding us that no technology can replace the care, love and compassion that the profession of nursing and midwifery and other health professions actually give. And now it is my pleasure to introduce a video statement from Luca Delac, who is a youth representative, where we asked him to give his perspective on aging. Stay with us. We have 2 more speakers in this segment, and after that, we go to our breakout rooms.
Hi, my name is Luca. I'm a junior doctor from Croatia, and I'm here as a youth representative and as someone who identifies as a health advocate for all at all ages. As young people, we're often focused on the now, our studies, careers, friendships, and dreams for the future. But aging? That often feels like a distant chapter in a book we haven't opened yet. The truth is, aging isn't a distant chapter. It's the pages we're writing every day, because aging is living. When I think about aging, I think about my grandmother, whose wisdom has guided me more times than I can count. I think about my friends and colleagues, who are shaping the future we will share as we grow older. Aging is often misunderstood, seen as weakness or irrelevance, but we need to stop perpetuating these stereotypes. Older generations bring wisdom and resilience, while young people contribute energy and fresh ideas. Imagine what we could achieve if we worked together, learning from one another instead of letting age divide us. One of the biggest challenges we face, both young and old, is combating ageism. It's not just about how society views older people, but about how we perceive aging itself. It's about valuing who we are beyond labels of too old or too young, and recognizing the strengths and contributions people bring at every stage of life. Young people today are living in a world that's filled with uncertainties, a world which is rapidly changing, technologically, environmentally, and economically. The way we will age is going to look different. Challenges like climate change, evolving health risks, and navigating a digital world that sometimes leaves people behind are already shaping how we live. These issues don't just affect us now, they build up over time, influencing our health and well-being as we grow older. This reminds us that we need to think about how to build environments that will help us age in good health, not just for our future, but also to be able to enjoy every stage of life. So, my take-home message would be, aging is not a limitation, it's a gift. It's an opportunity to learn, grow, and connect at any age. Let's embrace each other's strengths with inclusivity and compassion. Let's build bridges between generations and create communities that value every stage of life. Together, we can make aging a journey full of purpose and possibility. A journey we all embrace and celebrate.
I hope you all enjoyed watching that video as much as I did. The reference to his grandmother really got me, and he reminded us that aging is a gift. And now it is my pleasure to welcome Senator Oral Ataniatsova from Uzbekistan. We had the pleasure to meet some months ago, and I know that the senator is a tireless advocate for sexual and reproductive health and for healthy aging. Thank you, Senator, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Natasha. The question on aging, healthy aging, is very important for Uzbekistan. Developing a strategy for healthy and active aging is very crucial because of several reasons. Uzbekistan is the most populated country in Central Asia. Currently, we have 37.5 million of people in Uzbekistan, and 60% of this population is young people under 30 years old. And people with age of 60 plus is about 10%, and it is doubled during the last 5 years. And it is estimated that by year 2050, we will have 50 million people in Uzbekistan, and the population of 60 plus will be 20-25%. And this is create very crucial, create for us a task and aim to develop good strategy for healthy and active aging. Our society, we have very good different sources to be healthy. On the governmental level, we have priority for health and social actions. And on the family level, we have the families often the key source to support their lifestyle, elderly people. However, changing family structure during last years, migration trends and urbanization creates new challenges to to Uzbekistan as well. One of the unique factor in Uzbekistan is mahalla. This is a community structure, particularly prevalent in Uzbekistan. It combines traditional neighboring principles with system of local self-governance, acting as vital institution to preserve culture, tradition, and supporting welfare for population. Also, regarding gender issues, I would like to address your attention to reproductive health, because women and men, they have different reproductive background. Women with deliveries, with using different contraception, etc., they need more attention, more needs to have healthy and aging life for her life. And also, I would like to address another problem in Uzbekistan. It is environmental factors. We know that the RLC environmental crisis located in Uzbekistan and shared with Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan, Kızılorda region of Kazakhstan and the Republic of Karakalpakstan in Uzbekistan. There are about 10 million people living around these environmental factors, and healthy aging, environmental condition, this needs more contribution to this part of their life. And also a vulnerable group of people who have some diseases like endocrine disorders and many others. So we fully support the idea on that healthy and aging, active aging starts from childhood, from embryo stage. We should develop good strategy, good plan of action to provide a healthy and active aging. And I would like to pay your attention that the government of Uzbekistan started to develop strategy on healthy and active aging in collaboration with WHO, UNEC, and UNFPA. And we are ready as the governmental structures, as the community, as the individuals. We are supporting this idea on developing a good plan in collaboration with you, with all of you, on healthy and active aging. So that is my contribution to this very nice, very interesting panel. And I would like to thank all presentations because it put us to a new direction. I learned more and motivated more now to think and develop as a senator to developing strategy on healthy and active aging for my country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. It's so great that you speak about from your experience, as we hear from earlier on with ministers in Moldova, to England, to Spain, to the European Commissions. It's a big diversity, and it is our convening ability to bring the different experiences together. And thank you, Senator, for talking about the healthy and active longevity strategies, which we're so happy and honored to work together with you, together with our UN families, with UNECE, with UNFPA as well. This is a perfect segue to introduce you to Dr. Lisa Worth, who is the chief of the UNECE Population Unit. So dear Lisa, we worked together many years across our regions, including supporting Uzbekistan. How can the UN, all of us, work better together to support countries, work alongside with them to ensure aging truly means living?
Thank you, Yongji, and hello, everyone. First of all, let me congratulate Dr. Hans Kluge and WHO Europe for making healthy aging a priority direction in the new program of work. I think we've heard from the many distinguished panelists how important this topic is, particularly in our European region, which is at the forefront of this demographic transition to population aging, worldwide. So also the public hearing today, and thank you for the invitation, is a very timely occasion to help collect voices from many different stakeholders to help you shape this program of work. So we've heard many times already today that if we can age in good health, we can do the things that we value and that give our lives meaning long into old age. But it also works the other way around. If we can do the things that we value and that give us purpose and meaning in life, this promotes very much our physical, mental, and social well-being. So approaching aging from a life course perspective, but also from a very cross-cutting perspective, is key, because we need enabling supportive environment across all spheres of life and across our life courses, we've heard, to age well and healthily. And this is very much a core pillar of the UN's main policy instrument globally, which is the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging, that the UN family works and has been working for 20 years to support by promoting policy dialogue, by providing technical assistance, by monitoring progress, identifying gaps regularly, and helping shape the priorities for action going forward. So we do that at ECE, and Yongji, as you mentioned, we do this in partnership with all organizations, including, of course, WHO, working together on this. And WHO, as part of the UN family, really, and I want to acknowledge this, has provided very important thought leadership for the implementation of MIPA for the past 2 decades through technical, evidence-based, informed guidance in many important areas, including combating ageism, integrated care, long-term care, as we just heard, creating age-friendly environments, which is a concept, an approach put into practice by hundreds of age-friendly citizen communities in our region. And I very much hope that these important initiatives and analytical pieces will be further built upon and strengthened under the new program of work. Now, you asked, how can we as a UN family better support countries to ensure that aging truly means living? And an important part here, and I think you all know, is that we need to bridge the silos in which we tend to think and work to advance a cross-cutting, coordinated, comprehensive policy response across all policy fields, but also all governance levels, from the global down to the local level. Because, as we heard also before, the action really happens at local level. So what we do at national level, at international level, really operationalizes and plays out in the communities, in our families. So we need to work, of course, on health and care, but also far beyond this, including improving opportunities for learning, lifelong learning, by working through the educational system, by ensuring that we have opportunities in the labor market at all ages, combat age discrimination, as we heard from many speakers before, leaving no one behind. We need to ensure adequate social protection and financial security at all stages in life, but also in older age, and promote and foster communities that facilitate social participation and the social connections we heard about that are so important. Transport and housing sectors that improve mobility, urban and rural development that ensure independent living and participation at all ages. So you can see we need to act on all fronts. And we cannot do this alone. No ministry can do this alone. No UN agency can do this alone. So it's key to collaborate at national level and local levels across these different policy sectors, but in the UN family also across the different organizations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa, for reminding us, united, we stand together. This is our mandate as working together with our UN families. And thank you so much for also reminding us about our normative functions in collecting evidence and our policies, because everything that we do needs to be based on evidence and data, isn't it? And so great to have all these insights from all of our speakers, which will inform our discussions later to hear from you in our breakout sessions. Wasn't that great?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Many thanks to all our speakers also from our side. And thank you, our wonderful audience, for being patient with us. Now it's time to listen to you. Now we want to hear your ideas and your suggestions. And for this, we have created 7 breakout sessions, each addressing a key topic linked to demographic change and to our collective responses to this megatrend. The breakout groups will open 5 minutes after we close the plenary, giving everyone a short chance for a break. And to join one, you can see them on screen now. These are the topics that we'll be addressing. To join one of the breakout groups, we kindly ask you to either follow the link that my colleagues are placing in the chat or to go back to the reminder email that you received this morning and click the join button. This will take you back to the virtual lobby of the event, where you can scroll through all the 7 breakout sessions and choose the one that most interests you. Our colleagues will be there to continue the conversation and to go in more depth on all the discussions we've started here 5 minutes after we close the breakout session. A final reminder from my side, if you want to keep yourself busy during the break, the Para tool is active already. We're getting a lot of responses. Please don't forget to add your suggestions in as well. Natasha, over to you for the closing message.
So, from my end, I'd like to thank Stefania and Yongji for your excellent moderation. I'd like to thank also the team who has put this together. It's a large team, but specifically I would like to thank Govin and Jamin, and Gundo and Melita, Rami for the video, and above all, Emilia. Why? Because Emilia was really the person who was pulling all of this together. And indeed, yesterday evening, I wasn't sure if I was feeling well. And I was totally serene because I knew that if something went wrong, Emilia could have very well just stepped into my shoes this morning. And thank you, of course, to David and all the crew over here. You see us, but there's a crew behind us that enabled us to be able to be with you. Thank you to all the speakers. Watch this very touching video, have your break, and come back to our breakout sessions, which have been prepared so diligently by all of our teams. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, and see you soon.
Hi, my name is Emma. I forgot it. Hi, my name is Emma. I'm 10 years old. In my free time, I do gymnastics and piano. I'm actually excited to see what happens in the future and what's gonna happen next. And I wanna be an actress and a singer and a gymnast. That's a lot of stuff. I actually want to be more things, but that's gonna be hard. So, actress, singer, and gymnast, that's pretty good.
To me, growing older means a step forward to freedom, but I feel like freedom obviously comes with responsibility. I think responsibility and freedom definitely go hand in hand together. I think in my 50s and 60s, I'd really like to maybe take a shot at something that I was terrified of when I was 16, so right now.
So I think of life as really, I've got a long way to go yet. And I think that's, is that a life plan? Yes, it is a life plan. I intend to try and stay upright and living and being busy until I'm at least 100. And that's the truth. You have plans, be active.
È un di parte, perché ormai, se tu mi guardi bene, Repubblica